Trust and obey, for there's no other way to be happy in Jesus but to trust and obey. When we walk with the Lord in the light of His word, what a glory He sheds on our way. While we do His good will, He abides with us still, and with all who will trust and obey. Many people are worried. I don't want to be left behind. Left behind? It might be good if your idea of a rapture is from the Left Behind books, because Tim LaHaye, I don't know where Jerry Jenkins is now, but I haven't seen him talking about how Left Behind's coming true now, as he cleverly wrote all those books with Tim LaHaye, who was given money by the Moonies? Sun Young Moon? I don't quite understand that. Not to say that none of the Moonies will make it into the kingdom, don't get me wrong. But I think that Sun Young Moon might have been a little messed up. With his own doctrines of men. So, we need to keep some very basic things in mind when we're thinking about the rapture, because see, Tim LaHaye I met in person, and I was doubting the rapture after reading a few of his books because they seemed like a detective novel that wanted to go on for 10 books to make somebody too much money. So I started doubting it, so I read some other books about how the king coming fit more with the theme of the Bible than the rapture theory. And rapture actually means being caught up into the incoming king's kingdom to serve him, whether it be an office of mayor, maybe his inner circle of prayer warriors, I don't know, but there's many things that he might have in mind to serve in his kingdom of the whole earth. And being that that road is quite narrow of the followers of the king that are loyal in heart, well, I would think it would be a good time to narrow things down and get rid of strange doctrines like the rapture theory and being left behind, because you see, if you are in the actual rapture, you will be serving the king on earth, not in some spaceship above. But I think Elon Musk has plans for that. So if you want to have weak faith, according to your faith, it will be given you. And always remember, the disciples were the ones with little faith. It was the centurion that had great faith. So, where are you, and where are you trying to be? Because the rapture theory that's been put out there is not from the king. All it means is to be caught up into the incoming king's kingdom, and if you're not serving him and bowing to him now as king, well, the rapture you believe in would not be the one from 1 Thessalonians. Because if you read that whole book or listen to it all, including 2 Thessalonians, you will see it's about the second coming of the king. and about how he will judge. And yes, he will judge his own first of all. And if you haven't been following the golden rule, let's just say you're saved by grace alone, and your rapture theory might fit together well, but doesn't fit with the golden rule and the King of Kings who's coming, all will bow to. So what does the rapture really mean to you, and how are you really into this Perusa or whatever those Greek scholars like the scribes of old love to describe it? Like this hope we're going to be caught up into the air and flown away to heaven and meet him in the air and protected from all this terrible stuff. You see, that's why it says that those that are in his remnant when he comes, that actually are serving him like he's king, well, those will be the ones that are protected as he and the angels separate the wheat from the chaff. But if you're a little on the chaffy side, it might not be so pretty for you. Or if you're trusting in that rapture UFO, like some of the studious ones who study the Talmud believe Jesus is boiling in crap, or those ones who study the Book of Mormon too much and think that they're going to rule a planet. Well, they might rule a planet, all right. Might be the same one as the Rapture Saved by Grace crowd. It might be a cold-blooded planet where your blood can't get over 90 degrees because you're so cold-blooded at heart. You're going to have to pay for it for 1,000 years. Kind of like a reverse on the golden rule you never followed. But you trusted that doctrine saved by grace alone. Alone is where you'll feel on that cold-blooded planet. And maybe Mitt Romney will be there too, I don't know. But do you see what I'm saying? There's many different doctrines in many different churches and cults. There can be a trap that will have you stuck like a sheep with too much wool in a glue trap, like a rat with too many legs. And we've got a lot of two-legged rats right now running dens of thieves. So let's focus on what's important and on your king to come that Philippians 2 says all will bow to. Get your rapture understood. That it would be a gift to be raptured into the kingdom of the coming king and serve him for 1,000 years in some office that he might give you for how you lived according to the golden rule and loving your king. Well, that would simplify things quite a bit and get you out of that doctrinal stew which many have been stewing in for too many years. And believe me, I've spent many years there myself, which is why I'm doing what I'm doing now, to try to help people wake up like I did. But, well, there's a lot of foggy minds out there. But just keep in mind that we should not be deceived when there's 7 seas of lies. And if you think your church is doing you well, why don't you ask your pastor why he hasn't talked about how mask-induced pneumonia gives you the same symptoms as the plague that everybody's freaking out about. And if you go to the doctor with this plague, and, well, they'll just put you in a room and say, do not resuscitate, he's got that plague that's so contagious everybody's dying of. Just like they did in 1918 when the soldiers came back from war and they said, you better mask up because these guys have super spreaders. They got the vaccine and, well, it's spreading like wildfire, so you better mask up. And, well, they did. And then the pneumonia had the same symptoms as the Spanish flu. And 12 people died of the flu, and the rest died of mask-induced pneumonia. But, well, you know, it's the same symptoms. And we are 666 years from the Black Plague. And, oh yes, this is the lowest solar cycle we've had in over 600 years. So the sun is very far from the earth. These are coincidences? Do you have the blood of the king on your heart? Or are you worried about the latest plague in Egypt? Because denial is not a river in Egypt, but it might be a plague. So, who are you trusting? And are you really understanding what the rapture is? Because if you are, then you will be wanting to stay here on this earth and get caught up into the coming king's kingdom. That would be a rapture you could talk about. But not to go sail away, because Elon Musk might have great plans for you there with all the other cold-blooded planetary types who are not ready for a golden age. So get your heart and your head right for your king who comes. Get that rapture doctrines of men out of your head and your heart, and trust in the king to come and his kingdom coming to earth as it is in heaven, with 72 million that were forgotten here, but he did not forget them, and they were born in heaven, and they will be here, because they were not forgotten, as many have forgotten them here. But if you are not into these kinds of things, well, then you might not be worthy of being raptured with the king. But the princely rapture that you might believe in, that your pastor so cleverly taught you about, well, it could take you somewhere, that's for sure, but it might not be like the dream you were taught, you see. So, pray to your king. Ask him more for the things that you need. Ask him to help you to understand who he is as king and how he will reign and how you can be part of his kingdom and not another princely reign, because 1,000 years would be a long time to regret not knowing your king when you trusted doctrines of men that are only good for making sons of hell. So, please, trust not in the rapture you have been taught. Only trust in the rapture that fits in context of 1 Thessalonians 4, along with 1 Thessalonians 3, which was after 1 Thessalonians 2 and 1 You can read a whole book within an hour if you try, and you might learn a thing or two more than the doctrines of men that make sons of hell by using proof verses that they criticize cults for using out of context. So, it's very important to understand what doctrines you trust in and what the Bible actually says. Because that's the book of the king who came and was killed and has suddenly been deleted. But I don't think that's part of his plan. So, just get on the same page with the king and ask him if you could be raptured into his kingdom. And instead of begging to sweep the streets, maybe you might have better things he could have you do if you'd get your sights set right on who he is as king. Philippians 2 is a great place to start. 1 Corinthians 3 is another place. You could read the whole book of Matthew and then read Revelation. Focus on Revelation 2, Revelation 7, Revelation 17, Revelation 18, and then, of course, Revelation 22, because I think some of these false teachers who have been teaching you about these rapture theories, well, they might be soon drying out salt pillars on those 7 seas of lies that in Revelation 22 it says there are no more oceans for 1,000 years. And that's because, well, the fake salt and the poison and the lies, I think they will all be together with pillars of the false teachers who kept looking towards their money that they made in their dens of thieves and their seas of lies. And there they will pay, and they will give us a vision of what happened when we lived in those 7 seas of lies, and how now in the kingdom there is naked gold truth, and there is no more lies, and no more thefts, and all these terrible things that just come from forgetting how to love God right and our neighbor as ourselves. Just those 2 things would summarize the law and the prophets and would be the greatest reset. Instead of, "Oh, you of little faith, why are you fearing another plague like Egypt again?" When all you needed was the blood in the first place, and you still have it now on your heart, at least. That's what everybody's told. But when they look like a bunch of mummies, it just makes me wonder, who's really looking for a king? So dwell on these things and get off the Rapture spaceship, because it's not going to a good place unless you're wanting to be raptured by your king. And not to another place, but to serve on this earth in his kingdom for 1,000 years. Because that would be the golden age we all look forward to. If you are on the narrow road that few find, which shouldn't be that hard unless you're all fogged up like a woolly sheep, you're caught in the doctrinal seas of lies and glue traps of, well, like woolly sheep, you're in those glue traps of these doctrinal lies, and you're